Andrew McCART, IFL TV, proudly sponsored by Everlast. And I've got to say, this is a new one for me, but I'm delighted to be joined by Judy Murray. For people that don't know who you are, you're Andy Murray, Grand Slam winner's mother in tennis. What brings you to a boxing gym?
We've come to Joe Gallagher's boxing gym in Manchester as part of the tour behind Driving Force. Driving Force is a docu-series that's being shown on ITV, and it features actually 17 of Britain's most successful sportswomen, and it tells their backstories. And in the first series we featured Natasha Jonas, and in the second series we're featuring Katie Taylor. So what we're trying to do is go around the country using our contributors, so Natasha's here today, and inspire the young girls who are doing their sport in their communities. And you know, those two, Natasha and Katie, are such fantastic role models for any girls who are aspiring to a career in boxing. They're showing that it's possible. They've been incredibly successful. They're disciplined, they're dedicated, they're resilient, and they're so physically tough. So actually to get out there and be able to be in front of them and inspire them to be the best that they can be is really important, and it's been great fun, and it's a real insight for me who doesn't really know much about boxing, but full of admiration for what these kids are doing, because this is a brutal sport, and so to have half a dozen girls here training with the intensity that they are is wonderful to see.
We mentioned, I was talked about a little bit upstairs when you were having your talk and Driving Force were having their talk, and Joe Gallagher, that the masculine sports, the quote-unquote masculine sports, your rugby and your boxing and all your contact sports, you might not see a lot of women get involved. But were you surprised to see that, although it was only maybe 6 or 7 young girls up there today, but they were still there and they were enthusiastic, they were sitting there, eyes listening in, but there was a vast majority of young boys there rather than the girls. Would you like to see 50-50 in these boxing gyms and maybe more girls get involved in boxing, because it is a brutal sport and maybe a lot of girls are feeling that apprehension to step foot in that boxing ring? So what have you got to say these young girls that are second guessing themselves to join a boxing gym?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's so many reasons to join a gym of any sort. You know, get fit, self-defense, sense of belonging, healthier lifestyle and so forth. But the boxing, for me, that, you know, it's real old school, and as you say, it's contact, it's combat, and it's strength based. So therefore it is like many sports, it's predominantly a male domain. But if you want to open up that male domain, you've got to show women doing it. You've got to show them doing it at the top level, and that's why having the likes of Katie Taylor, Natasha Jonas, and many others, it's wow, you know, that looks great. And you can see the girls are loving it. They're mixing in with the boys. Yeah, there's 25 boys here and 6 girls. But, you know, with girls getting into any kind of physical activity, it's fun, friends and fitness that gets them in. So the importance of having 6 of them here and forming a good social group that support each other, spar with each other, travel with each other, etc., is incredibly important. And you never change a landscape overnight. It takes time. So if you're starting with 6 this year in the academy, maybe in the next couple of years you're going to have 10, and so it will keep on growing, especially when you showcase them working hard but having fun at the same time.
I seen you holding the pads in that ring there for a young girl. How was that for you?
She nearly knocked my hands off. I actually loved it. I mean, I love to try new things, and when we did Natasha's episode, I got in the ring with her and Joe, and of course I was doing everything in very slow motion, but they were explaining to me you know, the technical and tactical side of what they were doing, as well as obviously the physical side, and it gave me a much better understanding of what they're up against, because everything that I did in slow motion, because I'm a granny after all, and then I watched Natasha doing it with Joe at full speed, and you realise the danger that's involved there if you're not fast enough.
Well, a coach as well might get hit in the face.
Yeah, well, having a go with the pads on was probably just about enough for me, but yeah, I was scared that she was going to miss the pad and knock me out, which wouldn't have been difficult, but yeah, great fun.
We know your son Andy has been a huge boxing fan. I think I saw when he was on the old Ringside show on Sky Sports many years ago, I think before he even won Wimbledon, that he was on there saying how much of a big boxing fan he was, and you explained the story of him meeting David Haye out in Miami and stuff like that. Does Andy, does he still watch the sport? Is he still a massive fan to this day?
He is a huge student of boxing. You know, if he sits down and talks to people about boxing, he knows them inside out. And when I went to Joe's gym to do Natasha's episode, a year or so ago, and I sent him pictures, and he said, "Where are you?" And I said, "I'm at Joe Gallagher's boxing gym in Bolton. What are you doing there?" And I said, "I'm doing Driving Force series." And I said, "Do you recognise any of these guys?" And it was Callum Smith and Anthony Crolla, one or two others. He rhymed them all up, $1 Million Crolla. You know, he had all the nicknames and everything. He knew them all, and he's going, "I really love Callum Smith." You know, he was he was envious of me probably for the first time in his life. But yeah, he's a real student of it, and he always said, and I never really understood it until I got in the gym with Joe and Natasha, he always said, "Boxing's really like tennis, Mum." He said, "You are manoeuvring your opponent out of position to expose a weakness or a space, and then you go in with the killer shot." And he said, "It's just what I do on the tennis court. I work them round the court till I make a space to put the ball away." He said it's the same thing. I never really thought about it like that, but it's true.
I just thought because it's one-on-one. There's not many sports that you get one-on-one sort of thing. That's the way I was thought, but I didn't really think about it like that. So that being said, then Judy, as a mother, you're probably going to say no. But if Andy came to you, we've seen a lot of YouTubers now and a lot of celebrities coming at doing a little exhibition boxing fight and getting involved a little bit more. If Andy came to you and said, "Mum, I've got a fight in 6 months," what would your reaction be?
You know, him being him, if he took something like that on, he would put 100% into being the best that he could be at it. And actually, I don't know if he does now, but there was a time in his career that he had certain boxing things in. He had the pads, did a lot of skipping, because it's all these old school things. They're fun and they build up strength or speed off the mark or plyometric or, you know, whatever it is. And if it's something that you enjoy, you know, then it's fun to do. So he's always been a huge fan of boxing and the training attached to boxing for what it can do for you, for your overall physicality. So I wouldn't be surprised to see him taking on something like that once the tennis days are over, because I think he'd love to experience it. And he'd make sure he was absolutely switched on to do something like that. I suppose you just have to make sure that the matchup is not physically overpowering and you cause a problem to yourself.
Maybe Roger Federer or Novak Djokovic in the ring, who knows. But final one for me then, quick word on these young girls and what Driving Force, what yourself are doing for these young girls and women into sport and stuff like that. Just for people that might not know what Driving Force does and the show that you're doing, just break down for people watching this what you do.
Yeah, Driving Force it's on ITV. The second series is on ITV as of right now. And to back up the series, we've gone out on the road around the country trying to inspire girls in a variety of sports and a variety of venues to consider careers in sport. And that doesn't necessarily mean the playing of it. That could be physios or journalists, sports scientists, administrators, referees, etc., because we need to level the females in the workforce. We're probably at about 80-20 now, and I actually think that to encourage girls into sport and keep them there, we need more women around the workforce to make it a more fairer space in terms of equality of opportunity, because women see the world with women's eyes and women hear it with women's ears, whereas men don't. And it tends to be men who are in the decision-making positions in sport. So male advocacy for us is really important, but the visibility for us is huge, and we're kind of putting our money where our mouth is and going out with our contributors like Natasha, who's here today, inspiring the next generation.
There we go. Well, Judy, it's an absolute pleasure to meet you. Thank you so much, and good luck with Andy in the tennis world, and hopefully in a couple of years I'll see him in the boxing ring.
You never know.
Thank you so much, Judy. Thank you.